So we want to talk about, is life fair? This is part of my series of Islamic Life Guru or Happiness Guru, and let's talk about that. I'm going to talk about, so the short version of is life fair is the Quran teaches every bad thing that you do is something that you created from your own hands. And of course, I'll give the reference in the comments, pinned comment on the video. You can join in the debate on YouTube. And so some people would disagree. A lot of people would disagree because they think life is random. And I want to argue in two ways which it's not. And I don't want to make, this is not just some sort of random academic argument. I feel like people who think that life is random and there's nothing you can do to make your life better, those people suffer the most in life. And I want to give you very simple arguments. So if there were two roads to go, literal physical roads to go down, one was a dark alley with drug dealers and everybody's off their head on drugs and going mental, and the other one was a nice, well-lit road, very friendly people. In which road do you think you're most likely to get your face punched?
Where there's bad people.
Yeah, right? So we can reduce the probabilities of trouble in your life, right? And you can make more and more choices to build up the probabilities that less bad things will happen. So that's one line of argument. And then the second line of argument is not just the physical environment you choose to go into to reduce conflict and problems in your life, but also the mental attitude. So, two people can both have the same problems, but one person learns a lesson from it and comes out better from it, and another person comes out bitter and hates the word from it and goes into drugs and a downhill spiral. We've seen all these experiences. I've seen lots of examples of these two categories of people. So you can choose to build up good mental habits to get through and learn from mistakes. It's called a growth mindset in psychology talk. Or you can have the opposite mindset of victim mindset, etc. People don't like to use the word victim mindset. I don't know what people like to, but a lot of people, I don't want to get into too much terminology, but I would recommend people have a growth mindset where they do two things: improve their environment and improve their mental environment or mental attitudes. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, I agree totally. I think life, it can be unfair and it can be fair, and it just really depends a lot on the decisions that you make. I think that is a massive part of it. Now, you can choose, after a bad experience to, continue thinking and feeling of the bad, and it's going to take you further down that road. That's anybody that's lived through life, they can see that. And if someone experienced something really bad and they try to be a bit like what you're saying, growth mindset, use that kind of approach, these are things that you don't have to be pseudoscientists to know. All of these are common things that everybody knows. So there is a choice. Clearly life is unfair, but at the same time, there's clearly choices that we can make. But ultimately, I personally believe that there is no choice as well. I believe that everything's already written for us, and it's within that we can move around. There's movement within that, but outside of that, there isn't much. So, yeah, I kind of agree with what you're saying.
Let's talk about this second idea. So when you said everything's written down, but you still have the will to make good and bad choices.
Some movement, yeah.
Sure. I very much agree with you, right? So this is
like, for example, if I wanted to go and have sex with somebody, I can do that.
Yes.
If I wanted to go and stab somebody, I can do that. So the world is open. We can make whatever choices we like. But the thing is, we've been built with the intuition, obviously, and different things that tell us not to do that.
Interestingly, I was thinking about talking about that or not. Let's get ourselves centered. So, if you're an atheist, things feel more random, and if you believe in God, then people who believe in God, they believe in an all-powerful God who only allows certain number of things to happen. If things are not just random, and in fact, people who believe in God believe that this world is a test, and if you really think about it, it's not just a random test, it's a specific tailor-made test for you, a specific tailor-made test for me, and in the Quran it says that every difficulty that comes across you, you can handle it. You're designed to be able to handle it, but you might fail it, okay? No soul is tested beyond its capacity is the verse of the Holy Quran I'm talking about. Okay, so in that sense, if you believe in God, then you have a more sense of, in some ways, comfort that things are not totally random and they are in control and they're designed for your benefit, by the way, because God is not randomly picking and poking at you to see if you start crying. It's actually, God in the Quran at least, is known as the Rahman, which means, no, sorry, the wrong word, Rahim. I might as well say Rahman means the person, the God, who is so kind that just gives you loads of stuff for free. But the Rahim bit that I want to talk about is the God who, after giving you lots of abilities, wants you to succeed and encourages you to succeed. It's not an evil God at all. So, but he has to put you inside a difficult situation so you can develop through them. It's like, it makes sense, right? I don't want to go over explain these things. So my point is that there are no accidents, and it's all to your benefit. And having a belief in God makes life so much more bearable and even meaningful. But if you have no belief in God, this whole life is just one torment after the other. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, if you believe in God, it puts struggle and suffering. It transforms that into wisdom. If you believe in God, but if you don't believe in God, I think suffering it can transform into more darker things. So yeah, I believe that's very important to have a strong belief in God, which I do, which is the one thing that protects me from going fully down that negative spiral. And what it does is, because I believe in God so much, in my mind I make sense of bad things. So if something really horrible is happening to me, it's like what you said, your spirit is only tested to the point that it's meant to be tested, and no more or no less. And I believe that that it's the strongest and the greatest of God's creations that suffer. And I think the greatest of his creations.
What was that word?
I think the greatest of God's creations suffer.
What's that word?
Suffer.
I don't know what you mean.
Like the.
Is that an English word you were saying?
Suffer, yeah.
To suffer. Okay, suffering. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Suffering.
Oh, I see. So God's creation, great. Okay, I get it. So create suffering so you can develop through it.
There's a harder test for His most beloved creation, which is, I believe Muslims, we are a part of His beloved creation. Everything is. I believe I'm a part of His beloved creation. So I believe the reason why I've had such a testing time is because I'm meant for a lot more. That's why I believe.
It makes sense. Like, if God is tailoring a test for you, and then you go through a more difficult test, that means you're more capable of a harder test.
That's exactly.
And obviously, a harder
me from going and stabbing people.
Right. Then a harder test means you're going to achieve more things. It's like if I do, let's say, a low-level maths exam, because I'm a maths teacher, I'm just thinking, or a high-level maths exam. A high-level maths exam is harder, but you get a higher qualification, and the easier one is easier, but you get a lower qualification, is what you mean.
You're lying to yourself. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I believe that, when we have good people in the world and they suffer and they go through a lot of bad things, horrible things that they can't control, injustices, and they put their hands together and they say, Lord, you just guide me. Because those people are very strong, and they are God's greatest. They're amongst the greatest of His creation, and that's why He puts them through so much. The prophets were the same. The messengers, the prophets, the people that followed the prophets, all these people went through hell, basically. And yeah, that's my way of rationalizing it, and this is what keeps me from going onto the negative path, because I'm not just saying this, I know it with everything, every ounce of my being. I know for a fact that there's a greater purpose for me, And what that greater purpose is what I finally figured out at 31 years of age. It's not to fight, it's not to do sports, it's not to do combat sports, make money, get pictures, not to work and earn lots of money, not to do a business and make millions out of it. It's to do things because I enjoy doing them. And number two, this is the most important thing, is to go back to my country, which is Kashmir, and it's to go and work for free for the government and to change the country.
So you picked exactly.
That's
So you picked a purpose, but it's part of a larger purpose to make things better.
You know why I picked this purpose? Because no matter what I would try in my life, God would throw something in front of me, and He would destroy that opportunity. And I kept thinking, why?
So you feel like God is guiding you towards a certain direction, right?
He has. Okay. He's left me with no other choice but this one thing, which is to go to my home country of Kashmir, because I have everything makes sense. It's crazy because it all makes sense.
Yeah.
The Gilanis are politically, very prominent there, and we have a lot of influence there, and it's very easy for me to get.
So I want to keep it like I really enjoy what you're talking about.
I'm not bragging.
No.
What I'm saying is,
but I'm trying to make it specific. I'm trying to make it generalistic for everybody.
The reason why I'm going through all this is because all of the suffering. It got me to the point where I realized this.
Yeah.
This isn't something that I sat down with a careers advisor and he went, look, this is a good shout for you. Go to Kashmir. No, it's because of the suffering. It was because of the injustice in life and because of the lack of fairness, basically, that I felt. It kept guiding me. It kept changing my direction, and now I'm on this point. And now I've realized all of that was meant to happen because I'm much more happier doing this.
Yeah, I feel in many ways I feel the same way. And a lot of believers in God, the more it's kind of like getting in touch with the Matrix. Like you start seeing the Matrix, as it were. The Matrix being like you begin to see the reality of the world for what it is, and I feel that very strongly as well. I feel like I'm on a train track and there's a very certain path, and it's really obvious, and that's really helpful as a human being because you feel like you've got a purpose and a direction. And a lot of people, if you want to get, I know it's quite hard, thanks, appreciate it. A lot of people who are not atheists, people like who see other Muslims, they really value that. For example, I've been watching UFC Khabib, who's been like this massive champion, whatever, and now his protege is taken over. But anyway, a lot of people say they're so impressed by Muslims because when they pray, they go to a different place, a different level of conviction that no other person can, because you're so sure of what you're doing, and it really helps you.
It's a direct channel. It's a direct link, basically, to the divine, which is prayer. It's salat. It's the connection to the divine.
Yes, exactly. This prayer gets you what the benefit of prayer is, and I'm not sure if it's sidetracking, is life there or not, but let's just go there anyway. It gives you it's just a reminder 5 times a day at minimum what life is about, because it's when you don't pray, what happens is we get involved in worldly things and we forget our direction, and this is like 5 times a day, get back on track, and it helps a lot.
That's how I feel. I feel it's a way of getting yourself back on track and onto the basically, like you're saying, the worldly things by salat. What it does is
salat is a special form of prayer that the Muslims have. Actually, when I say special, it's how Jesus prayed and so many other. It's the old way of praying. But anyway, I just kind of want to wind it up because I love trying to make my videos as short as possible. People might think believing in, just to wind it up because we're talking so much about God, people might think that it's irrational to believe in God. It's actually the opposite, because as soon as you look into nature, you'll realize things are so complicated that it's impossible, just mathematically or statistically, whichever word you want to use, okay, the probabilities of, let's say, there's something called hemoglobin, just to give an example. It's so complicated.
red blood cells.
Yeah, exactly. So, to make one should have taken, I can't say billions, because the number is not big enough. Trillions is not big enough. It should have taken that many times longer than the age of the universe to make one of these. That's how complicated it is. I could give you some numbers, but we're talking about, and so
there's so many things that we can't explain or understand that are very complex, and they exist.
yes.
And
So
we choose to be, what's the word, docile to that.
yeah, so exactly, we kind of like, we seem to ignore it, ambivalent, we don't seem to care. So if you're an honest, rational person, sorry, I keep asking you to come in. If you're an honest, rational person, if there was, let's step back to make it easier for you, just to finish up. If you're an honest, rational person, if there was, let's say, 25% chance of ice cream existing, and let's make it the other way around, 25% chance of ice cream not existing and 75% chance of ice cream existing, you would believe in ice cream.
Absolutely.
Right? So if the probabilities are far higher in terms of God existing, and you can calculate these probabilities just by looking at how complex God's creation is, right? Then you should, if you're honest and rational, you should just believe in God. That's what. But I could go into far more detail, but anybody who's followed the science will know that it's incredibly so.
What is science? Science is a way for us to measure what God has created.
Sure.
And maths.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's what it is. It's for us to understand God's creation and all of its complexities.
Yeah.
Really, that's what science and mathematics is. It's not a new God, and that's what the problem with the Western world is. They've turned science into a new God, which is the problem, when science was always meant to be to explain everything around us, what's already here. But instead, now we're putting science as the ultimate knowledge, which is, this is where we're going wrong. Because at the end, same with maths. Maths is very pure. Nobody can say, oh, maths is wrong, it's corrupt. Nobody can say that. But maths is certainly, it's not above the dimensions of the divine and above.
It doesn't explain why of everything, it just explains how.
Yes, exactly. Mathematics, you can literally break down everything in the universe, can't you, with mathematics? And in science is the investigation.
I mean, we've got our limitations, but I would agree that it's a useful tool, and if we followed,
it's limited, isn't it?
and if we just followed the science and the logic and the maths, whatever, we would come to the conclusion that God must exist, just rationally, okay? But I think I won't go into that anymore. That'll be a separate video.
One more thing, because I think it might be useful to people listening. So, because obviously I'm very Westernized myself, so I'm not coming from a perspective of someone that's super religious or grew up in a super religious home or from Pakistan or Middle East and then moving over here. I'm born and bred in this country, completely Westernized views and opinions on everything. So I've done very Western things in my life, like promoting combat sports, for example, running mixed martial arts gyms and doing things that are very liberal. These aren't things that usually people do from the Asian or Muslim background. So my perspective is of a liberal Muslim. So it's not that I'm not coming from a perspective of narrow-mindedness. I'm coming from a perspective of someone that's lived in the UK, dealing with all the issues, social, whatever issues that we deal with. And this is my conclusion, is that everything is an absolute test. Now, one more thing, 30 seconds just to finish off. I was doing shows, combat sports events. We were dealing with a lot of problems. People were stealing money. We weren't making the money. We've got all kinds of disputes. We're trying to impress people. Nothing was working out. We were failing. The second we started doing things because we wanted to do it and because we're serving Almighty, automatically the events became extremely successful and started gaining a lot of traction, a lot of people traveling all over the country, and this was because we changed our mentality. What we were talking about at the start of the video, of how it's a choice that you have to make. Something negative happens, you can make out that is the universe, and that's the master of the universe right there, or there's another master of the universe somewhere else, and you're going to need to go towards that. And that's ultimately why I wanted to make the last point, because it connects to the whole purpose of this video, which is obviously, is life unfair? Is it fair? The choices that we have do ultimately lead us to the outcome that we're living in. And being a Muslim, believing in God, you can avoid going down these negative spirals, which I have done and I've proven because of where I am today. I have went through that cycle. I tried to impress people. I tried to be material. I tried to do things the Western way, the way that I'm taught because I'm born here, and it did not work. It destroyed my reputation. It made things a lot harder. We made no money. The second I switched that around and I started doing it only to please Almighty, even the combat sports events, everything changed. And I can't stress that enough, how everything just changed automatically. So
I totally agree. So there's two. Because that's such a beautiful point, and it's very much tied to what we started off, which is life fair. If you make really good choices, and by the way, following the Almighty, that is God, God just asks you to do good things, right? And psychologists like Viktor Frankl has explained, if you want to be happy, you have to do something meaningful, and meaningful means doing good things. So when you live a life which is about doing good things, you're far more empowered and confident about your life choices. So two things happen. If you believe in God, you'll see God is helping you. But also, when you do what you believe is right, even if something bad happens here and there, because your convictions are so strong, you keep going forward. But if you do things you don't believe in, you'll collapse at every single hurdle.
you question yourself every day. You'll never believe in yourself. You have no respect for yourself. Man, it just keeps going on and on and on. Absolutely.
Cool. I think that was a fantastic video. Thank you very much for your time, Mr.
Always welcome.